Thanks. I know we've got an exceptionally large group in here. Normally when you come in here for meetings, it's everybody's down here and we only have one class at a time, and this creates for a little bit larger venue. With that said, just again, I just want to go over a couple of the housekeeping things prior to our speaker arriving and coming on in here. So one, remember, water bottles, all that stuff closed. You don't need them out and open. There's supposed to be no food or drink in here. Two, at the end of the presentation when people are leaving, please, not hopping over seats or walking over seats. This auditorium's 20 years old, but it looks like it's 2 years old, and that's because it's been taken care of. And again, you guys aren't normally in here in a large group setting, so keep that in mind. Three, before a speaker comes out and before introductions take place, always remember that whenever we get into these situations, it's very easy to maybe get off task or get focused. Not that the content isn't interesting or the person isn't, but somebody next to you, maybe the elbow or something like that, and all of a sudden now we're focused on something else. So please take a moment to make sure, one, your phones are turned off, because we don't want anybody's phone ringing or going off or doing anything like that. So yeah, you get a freebie right now. If it's on, just turn it off. Two, given the, I guess, the topic and the content of what you're going to hear, you guys are going to be exposed to a really interesting topic today. And I always relate it back to my 91-year-old grandfather who still talks about his experience on a battleship in the Pacific Theater and what that was like. And with that comes a level of respect, that it's a naturally and what we call legitimate earned respect. And you need to keep that in mind throughout the presentation. Not that I'm worried about it, because you guys always do a great job and you rise to the occasion, but it's just that reminder that there's that legitimate authority and that legitimate respect that needs to take place today, and as we honor our guest today. Okay? So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Miss Lobel, I believe, who's somewhere over here. Miss Lobel, and I'll let her take care of introductions.
Hey guys, thank you so much for your patience. I know that this has taken a little bit of efforts in doing. Just a big shout out to the social staff for helping me out with getting this scheduled and everything like that. For those of you who don't know this profile, this gentleman's name is Mr. Melton, and he is a Holocaust survivor. He comes to us from Milwaukee, and he drove down despite the rain, and previous time we attempted it with snow, so today we got lucky. And so I would have the pleasure and the distinction of introducing Mr. Howard Melton. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. Can everybody hear me? You have a unique opportunity. I'm 100% sure that your children will not have that opportunity to see a Holocaust survivor and to ask questions. Some people ask me why I dress up when I speak. Well, I usually dress up when I speak at the funeral, when I visit the funeral. So that's what I'm doing. I'm talking about people that couldn't be here, and I have to speak for them. On June 22nd, 1941, I was in a summer camp. We woke up about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. We heard noises, and they told us that Russia had launched Operation Barbarossa, the attack on the Soviet Union and Russia. It took us back to our hometown, which was Kaunas, Lithuania, was the capital of Lithuania at that time. Now it's Vilnius. There lived about 160,000 people, and about 40,000 were Jews. So the Jewish population was about 40%. Most of the Jews started running away from the Germans because the Germans did not treat the Jews very well. We didn't know they were going to kill us. So there was no public transportation. Either you had a bicycle, a horse cart, or you walked. My family started running away on Monday, which was too late already. My mother, my father, the younger sister and I, the younger sister and I started running away. The German planes came over, started strafing us. A lot of people died. You had to dig in the ditches. We got about 35 kilometers from my hometown. We stopped at a little city called Yanova. We stayed there overnight. The next day there was a big battle between the Russians and the Germans. The Russians were on one side of the city, the Germans were on the other side of the city. And it was a very big battle. And my father was in the First World War, so he said we shouldn't stay in the house because sometimes those shells fall short and the houses get destroyed. So we went to, there was a little stream that ran through this little city. We went to the stream and we lay down with pillows on our heads. Finally, we lay there for the whole night. And finally, the Russian artillery got slower and the German artillery increased, so we knew the Russians were losing. So finally, when it stopped, we went back to our house. Most of the houses were abandoned. People ran away. And we stayed overnight. The next morning, we woke up. The house was near the highway. Next morning, we woke up. My mother opened up the curtain from the window, and she saw German soldiers marching up the highway, and she started crying. I didn't know why she was crying, but evidently she must have had a premonition what's going to happen. Finally, we went back to our hometown. The Lithuanians were very anti-Semitic. They still are. There was no authority whatsoever. There was utter chaos. One day they were your neighbor. The next day they come in, raped you, robbed you, and killed you, just because you were a Jew. They killed between 8,000 and 10,000 Jews. Finally, when the Germans came in, they picked Jewish men and women off the street and took them up to the 7th fort. Our Congress had 10 forts built around the city. What they were used in normal times is to house prisoners. They took them up to the 7th fort and shot them. Finally, they decided to put all the Jews had to wear the yellow Star of David front and back. Now they had no problem recognizing who's a Jew. Right away, they passed anti-Jewish laws. You could not do anything any normal person would do. You could not go to a cinema. You could not go use public transportation. You could not go to a park. You couldn't walk on the sidewalk. If you met any German or any Lithuanian officer or enlisted man, you had to take your hat off. And any German or any Lithuanian, they didn't like the way you looked or the way you walked or the way you talked, could just kill you without any consequences whatsoever. Jewish life was worthless. Finally, they decided to put all the Jews in the ghetto for our own protection. They picked the poorest little suburb of the city called William Paul, Lithuanian, Slobodka, and Jewish, and all the Jews had to move in there, and all the Gentiles had to move out. They made us just build a ghetto, a fence around it, and all the Jews had to be there by August 15th. Anybody caught outside the ghetto after August 15th would be shot on sight. And they did it too. But they had a little problem. There was a main roadway running right through this little suburb, which they couldn't shut down because there weren't that many main roadways to begin with. So what they did, they made it just build a small ghetto on one side of the roadway and a larger ghetto on the other side of the roadway, connected with a wooden bridge over the roadway. The old age home, the orphanage, the hospital were all in a small ghetto. On October 7th, 1941, they boarded up the hospital with nurses, doctors, patients, visitors, whoever was in there, set it on fire. The hospital burned for about 2 days. Everybody got killed. On October, they took all the people from the small ghetto, and they took them up to the ninth fort and shot them. About 6,000 people, men, women, and children. On October 28th, nobody went to work. Everybody had to assemble in an open place called the Makwato place. You had to be there 6 o'clock in the morning. They didn't care if you were sick or crippled or whatever. You had to be there. You had to leave your doors open, your windows open, your cupboards open. And anybody caught in the home after 6 o'clock would be shot on sight. And they did it too. We were guarded by Lithuanian guards, German guards, Latvian guards, Ukrainian guards. There were two men, one SS man named Rauka and one SA man named Jordan. And you came before them as a family or as an individual. They looked you over and they decided whether you're going to live or die. If they thought you were young, healthy, they could get some work out of you, they sent you to the left. If you're old, crippled, weak, they sent you to the right. They took 10,000 people, put them in a small ghetto overnight. The next day they took them up to the 7th fort and shot them. That's when I lost most of my family. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. After that, there was lots of room in the ghetto. In February 1942, they took 500 men and shipped them up to Riga, Latvia, which is the next country above Lithuania. And the reason they shipped them up is because the Latvians, who are a little bit more anti-Semitic than the Lithuanians are, killed all the Jews up there. And they needed some slave laborers to expand the airport up there because the airport was kind of small. It so happened that they shipped my father up there. In October 1942, they came around and they asked for volunteers to be shipped up to Riga because they needed more slave laborers to work at the airport. My mother volunteered. Usually you don't volunteer for anything. But she volunteered because she knew my father was up there. So my mother, my older sister and I, and my younger sister and I, and my mother and 500 other people were shipped up to Riga, Latvia. And I think that action that my mother took saved my life. Didn't save my mother's life or my sister's lives, but maybe it saved my life because that camp up there was run by the Luftwaffe, by the German Air Force. And it was not as rough a camp as camps run by the SS. They had a farm up there, and they asked for volunteers to work on the farm. Working on the farm, of course, was not as hard as working at the airport. So I volunteered to work on the farm. You could always get an extra slice of bread or extra potato, extra carrot. It wasn't too bad. Until the summer of 1943, the SS took over our camp and things changed. They took everybody that were not at work and shipped them to Auschwitz. That's when I lost my younger sister. Had I not been working, I would have been shipped there too. Finally, in spring of 1944, the Russian front got pretty close to us. So they shipped us back to a work camp in Lithuania. Then they shipped us to a ghetto in Lithuania. Finally, in June 1944, they shipped us to concentration camp Stutthof, which was on the Baltic Sea also, but it was close to Danzig. When we got to Stutthof, they took everything away from you, separated the men from the women, gave you a shower, and we were happy water came out instead of gas. Cut your hair, made you spread eagle, made sure you didn't hide anything. Gave you a striped coat, striped pair of pants, pair of wooden shoes, with a number on the coat, and a colored triangle. Jews had yellow triangles. Political prisoners had red triangles. Homosexuals had pink triangles. Criminals had green triangles. The reason for those triangles, because when they looked at you, they could tell what you were in there for, with a number on the coat. The next day, they shipped out the work transport to concentration camp Dachau. I wanted to go with my father, but evidently I was too short. They wouldn't let me. I stayed in Stutthof. Those were the most horrible weeks I spent in any camp because we didn't work. We expected any day to be taken to the crematorium because the Germans didn't keep you around unless you worked for them. We were about 220 boys between the ages maybe 12 to 16. We slept in the barracks, maybe made the house, maybe 80 to 85. If you didn't find room in one of the slots, you We slept on the floor. We were guarded by two couples. Every barracks had overseers. They were called couples. And those two couples had green triangles. So we knew they were in there for criminal activity. They stood on either side of the door every morning with sticks and chased you out and clobbered you. If you happened to sneak by, they gave you twice as much. Now they took everything away from us. They gave us a little metal bowl, a little metal cup, and a piece of wire, a piece of string to hold up our pants. In the morning they chased us out, gave us some Satz cafe, coffee made out of burnt straw, slice of bread, and a piece of margarine. You sat in the sand, doing nothing. Till about 11:30, 12 o'clock, they gave us some soup made out of weeds and a few floating potatoes in it, slice of bread. You sat in the sand again. Till about 5:30, and they repeated the process. Chased you back in the barracks. I have a friend here. We're from the same hometown. He's 3 years older than I am. He went to school with my older sister. And we wanted to get out of there in the worst way, because we knew one of the days they're going to come for us. It's going to be the end of us. Finally, they were short for a work transport to concentration camp Dachau. And they came and asked anybody who is 15 years old or older. I wasn't. My friend was. I wasn't. I told them I was. So they shipped us to concentration camp Dachau. Now Dachau had 10 subcamps. They were called Arbeitslager, work camps. They shipped us from there, they shipped us to camp number 10, which was a brand new camp. We built concrete beams 40, 50 feet long, reinforced with steel, that the Germans were going to use to build underground airports in the wall of the mountains. We slept in barracks. I don't think you can call them barracks, because you can imagine just a roof laying on the ground, no walls. And there was a ditch dug in the middle, and we slept on either side on wooden boards, straw and blankets. 25 people to a side, 50 people to a barracks. The food was not too bad at the beginning. They gave us soup twice a day and a loaf of bread divided by 3 people. But towards the end of the war, the Germans themselves were short on food. They gave us soup once a day and a loaf of bread divided by 10 people. And the person that divided a loaf of bread got the last slice, so made sure we divided it evenly. The work was pretty hard. We worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Worked on cement mixers and cement and roadways, and it's pretty hard work. We did not have any sanitary facilities except cold water basins and toilets. If you got sick, if you couldn't work, they shipped you back to Dachau. That was the end of you. Finally, in middle of April 1945, the Americans got pretty close to us, so they marched us back to Dachau. Took us about 2 days to get there. When we got to Dachau, the situation was horrible. There were people laying inside and outside, dead, trains, and people looked horrible. Evidently, we must have been the best looking specimen that came in there, because they gave us a shower, sprayed us with DDT, and told us to report to the gate the next day. They gave us a small loaf of bread and a can of meat, which we hadn't seen maybe in 3-4 years, and marched us out. Of course, if you were a smart prisoner, and I think most of the prisoners that survived that long were pretty smart, the first thing you did, you ate it. Then nobody can steal it from you. Beginning, we were marching in the daytime, guarded by SS men with German Shepherd dogs. Then American planes came over, started strafing us because we were long lines. We started marching at night. No food, no water. If you lay down or you fell down, stuck the dogs on you. If you didn't get up, put a bullet in your head. That was the end of you. Finally, they marched us into a little ravine with, we saw machine guns on 3 sides of it. And my friend and I said goodbye to each other because the Germans had told us, 5 minutes to 12, we're going to get rid of you. We're not going to leave you alive. So we lay down. We expected not to wake up the next morning because they were going to shoot us. But they didn't. Evidently, the commander of the transport decided not to shoot us. Maybe he wanted to save his own skin. Marched us out again. Marched us maybe another 30, 35 kilometers. Put us in some woods. Stayed overnight. We woke up on May 2nd, 1945. We were close to the Waterford Mountains at that time. We were covered with about 2 inches of snow. And the guards had disappeared, the dogs had disappeared in the night. They were all gone. 2 old German soldiers, they started recruiting people in the 60s towards the end of the war, marched us into this little village called Waterford. And about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we saw some tanks coming down the road with white stars. We didn't know the Americans used white stars. We knew the Russians used red stars. But the first tank that came into this little village was very dirty. But when it left, it was very clean. People were crying and kissing it, and it's like getting your life back. The Americans were very good to us, and maybe a little bit too good. They gave us sea rations, hamburgers, chocolates. And not having eaten for 7, 8 days, most people are right. And a lot of people died from overeating. My friend and I, we were in and out of hospitals for about 2 years till we recovered a little bit. In December 1947, my friend decided to emigrate to the United States. He could come under the orphan quota because he was an orphan. I stayed in Germany. I kept getting letters from him, how wonderful this country is, how great the people are. So I decided to come here too. I came here in August 1949. In June of 1950, the Korean War broke out. My friend got drafted into the United States Army. If you wanted to become a citizen, you had to serve. I didn't want to get drafted, so I joined the United States Air Force. I served for 4 years in California. I met a girl here in 1950 in Milwaukee. We fell in love. When she graduated from Washington High School in 1951, she came out to California. We got married. We're going to celebrate 65 years this coming June. We have 4 children. We have 9 grandchildren. And we have 5 great-grandchildren. I can tell you one thing, though. When I awoke on May 2nd, 1945, if I could have written my own future, I don't think I could have done a better job, because life has just been wonderful. Now, the food in the camps were mostly potatoes and bread. In the ghetto, sometimes they gave us horse meat, which tasted very good. I know that there isn't, I don't think there's anybody in the United States that knows what hunger is. I mean, real hunger. Real hunger is something that a normal person doesn't experience. It's impossible for him to experience. I know if one of you gets sick, maybe and you can't eat for a couple of days. After you get well, you say, "Oh my God, I'm so hungry I can eat a horse." Well, I did. When they were taking us from the woods to the little village, there were some dead horses laying on the side of the road. I don't know, probably shot by planes. The prisoners jumped on them. By the time I got there was nothing left. I took a rock, poked the horse's head, and ate some of the marrow, which tasted good. Anything you can put in your mouth tastes good when you're hungry, when you're really hungry. Potato peelings are delicious. Grasshoppers taste good. Certain grasses are delicious. Anything you can put in your mouth tastes good. Some people ask me, what were you thinking about when you were laying there dead tired, starving? What were you thinking about? Were you thinking about your family? Were you thinking about liberation? What were you thinking about? I said, I was thinking about only one thing: having a small little loaf all to myself. That was my thought. In the last camp where we were, the Germans did not have any refrigeration. So what they did, they dug ditches in the ground, lined it with straw, put the potatoes in it, covered it with straw and dirt, and every day they used to take out some of the potatoes to feed themselves and the prisoners. And one of the ditches got full of water, and the potatoes rotted. Anybody knows what horrible the potatoes smell like, right? Now we had in the barracks, we had a little iron stove in the middle of the ditch. Even though southern Bavaria, it still gets below freezing in wintertime. Burned wood to keep us warm. Now you know, unless you take a shower every day or change your clothes, you accumulate lice. And lice live on only one thing: human blood. So if you had a cut or a sore, the lice would congregate and actually suck the blood out of you. I saw something that I can't get out of my mind. I think it'll stick in my mind for the rest of my life. I saw a dead man actually move. It's impossible, he's dead. Seeing dead people was nothing unusual. You were just happy that you didn't lay it yourself. You could probably lay it yourself in the next couple of seconds. But that man was so covered with lice that the lice were actually moving the body. It's a horrible sight. Now, the only time they gave us a shower when they shipped us from camp to camp. They gave us a shower, sprayed us with DDT, and changed our clothes. In our last camp where we were, they didn't give us a shower, they didn't change our clothes, they didn't spray us with DDT, so we accumulated lice. And lice usually congregate to the seams of your clothing. I got out one night, got some of those rotten potatoes. Those potatoes were so rotten, you didn't have to peel them. The skin was that far away from the meat. All you had to do is break it open, and you had to meat and a potato right in your hand. My friend and I were making potato pancakes on this little wood-burning stove. At the same time, there were prisoners delousing themselves. Took off your coat or your pants, and you want the seam of it on the hot little stove. The lice would either perish or jump off. Either way, you got rid of them. If you didn't get rid of the lice got rid of you. In the camp where I was in Vega, I worked at the airport, and my job was to take care of some cows. So since we were close to the airport, I used to take the cows to the airport for them to feed them. And I think it was July 1944, and it's pretty hot. And a tire blew out on a German plane. The guards came out of the commandant tour, grabbed me, and said I was a saboteur. I caused the tire to blow out. Took me to the commandant tour, and they're going to shoot me. They don't ask questions, just shoot me, that's all. But I was lucky. There was a German Air Force mechanic who was sitting outside eating lunch. And he came in and said, no, he didn't do anything. He says, the tire blew out because of the heat. I looked at it, I examined it. He said, let me go. If he'd have been a couple of minutes later, I wouldn't be here. I would have been shot. I would like to open it up to questions now. What I want you to do, I want the teacher to come up here and repeat the question to me, because even though I have hearing aids, my hearing is not as good. So if you have any questions, I would like you to stand up, and if I know the answer, I'll be more than happy to say so. If I don't, I won't be able to answer it. Any questions?
As you guys come down, we have a mic over here.
How did you, oh, geez, okay. How did you keep your faith during the whole experience in the camps?
How did I keep my faith?
Yes.
Well, I wasn't religious before the war, and I wasn't religious while I was in camp. I still believe in God. Some people ask me, how can you believe in God when what you went through? You lost your whole family. How can you do it? You know, I usually listen to NPR radio, and they had Eli Wiesel on there, and they said that he said that he was angry with God. I couldn't understand it. Eli Wiesel was only in camp for 9 months. I was there for close to 4 years. I'm not angry with God. God didn't do it. Human beings did it. God gives you a choice. The choice isn't up to God. The choice is up to you. You can blame God for what you do or what you did. So I'm not angry with God. I still go to the synagogue, maybe not as often as I should. But I believe in God.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Did you have to get like a number tattooed on your arm?
No, the only place they tattooed you was in Auschwitz, when they kept you alive. because Auschwitz had a lot of factors around it. So they tattooed you and they kept track of you, not by your name, just by your number, by the number on your arm. So if they called out so-and-so number, you looked at your arm and that's what they wanted. Any other questions?
Was it sort of weird getting back to the daily life after the war? Getting back to the daily life.
My daily life? No, it was not at all. It was just getting back to your life again. I was very happy to be alive. Some people ask me, how did you survive? It's one question I can't answer. I don't know. Maybe I was in the right place at the right time. But I wanted to survive. I wanted to see the end of Hitler. Maybe that's what kept me alive. But there were a lot of people that gave up. They committed suicide. They couldn't take it anymore. But maybe I was too young to know any different, you know. I just wanted to survive. And I did. Not too many 10-year-olds survived the war, that I know.
How old were you when the Germans started taking people to camp?
How old was I? I was 10 years old. And when I was liberated, I was 14. Any other questions? When I was liberated, I weighed something like maybe 50, 55 pounds. At 14 years old, that weigh up that much? No?
Do you remember the first meal you had after you got liberated?
My first meal after I was liberated, I think I had some hamburgers that the American soldiers gave us, or sea rations. To tell you the truth, I can't remember.
Did you have it like at the base, at the military
Pardon?
base? Did you have it at the military base, or were you taken to?
I
a
had
different
it
spot?
when the Americans came in and liberated us. They gave us food because they knew we were starving. So whatever they gave you, I mean, we weren't asking the questions. If it was edible, you ate it. Any other questions?
Did you get to know any American soldiers?
No, I did not, because I was too sick and I couldn't speak English, so I didn't get to know any one of them. I was trying to find out which part of the American Army liberated us, but I still couldn't find out.
Are upperclassmen or just quick stepping out? Yep. I'm just gonna wait for the upperclassmen to finish.
How accurate are the movies that like depict the Holocaust?
The Schindler's List is very accurate. That's one of the best movies I saw, except for the people that played it were a little bit too well-fed, you know. But that's a pretty accurate movie because it shows you how the commander of the ghetto, by him shooting somebody, was nothing unusual, was a everyday occurrence. I mean, you know. So that I would think that movie was very, very good. And Shoah, which was kind of a little bit too long, it's about 6 hours. That's pretty accurate too. But most of the movies I usually read books about the Holocaust. You know, that's because no matter where you were, every survivor has a different story to tell. And I wanted to see what happened in other camps, in the other concentration camps, in other ghettos, in other war camps. And I found out that I was lucky that I didn't go with my father to Dachau, because he was shipped to war camp number 2. And I found out after the war that I talked to people that were there. They said, I told them I was in camp number 10. They said, well, you were in the vacation camp, because camp number 2 was very, very, very rough. And a lot of people didn't survive. If I would have gone with my father, I would have been in camp number 2. I probably wouldn't have survived, because at that time my father was about 42 years old, so he was much stronger than I was. So by me not being able to go with him, I wound up in a different camp. So maybe that helped me to survive the war.
What encouraged you to keep going throughout the entire experience of the Holocaust?
What encouraged me to keep going? I don't know. Maybe I was too young. Maybe I didn't know any better, you know. But I know some people just gave up. I had a friend. He just passed away about a year ago. We were in all the camps together. We were liberated together. We were from the same hometown. He was an economics professor at MIT in Massachusetts. He told me a story about his uncle. His uncle was a dentist in the town. When the Germans came in, they asked for 500 prominent Jews to come forward, because they wanted to have a list of all the craftsmen in the community so they can help them during the war. Actually, it was a lie. What they wanted to do is get all the leaders together, take them out, and kill them. If you kill all the leaders, you can't have an uprising. So they took them out the edge of town, they made them dig ditches, and got to kill them. His wife found out about it. And she went to some prominent Lithuanians and practically got him out of the grave, brought him home. He hung himself. He left a note saying, I do not want to live in a world but one human being can be so cruel to another. He just gave up. I was just the opposite. I wanted to live. I wanted to see the end of Hitler. And I made it. Any other questions?
What do you think of those books like Night? I know you already talked about it, but like when you read those, what do you think about when you read like?
Well, it's a good book, but there are many other ones that are, I think, a little bit better than Night. I read a few that are a little better than Night. I mean, he's a very good writer. He's lucky. He was liberated, and they shipped him to France to get education. When I was liberated, nobody asked me what I wanted to do. They didn't say, you want to go back to school or what? No. Nobody asked me. So he was educated. He became a pretty good writer, and he's pretty lucky. I wasn't that lucky. When I joined the United States Air Force, they gave me a test given by the University of Wisconsin in Madison, a high school level test. I passed it. So according to the United States Air Force, I'm a high school graduate. My kids, my 4 kids, my oldest son, I was very interested my kids should be educated. My oldest son went to University of Wisconsin. Then he went to the University of Chicago, became an attorney. He just retired last year. And my daughter went to University of Wisconsin. She became an art teacher. She got a master's. She's teaching in Cedarburg. She's going to retire this June. And my other son went to University of Wisconsin. He got a degree in limnology. And most people don't know what limnology is. It's the study of freshwater lakes. I asked him, what are you going to do? Where are you going to get a job? Either the state or the federal government. Anyway, he's running one of my businesses in St. Francis. And my other son went to UW, got an art degree, and he's running my other business. So I'm very happy. I can't tell you how happy I am that. And my grandchildren, my oldest granddaughter is an attorney. She works in Chicago for the Homeland Security. And my other grandson, her brother, went to university and he went to the CIA, Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, became a chef. He works for some company that's very prominent. And I'm very, very happy.
Following the war, were there still anti-Semitic feelings in Germany?
You could not find a Nazi in Germany after the war. There were no Nazis. They all disappeared. There was still anti-Semitism there, but it was below the official level. You know what I mean? But now Germany turned out to be a wonderful country because they took responsibility for what they did, and they're trying to be, I think, one of the more democratic countries in Europe. And somebody asked me if I hate the Germans. I don't hate the Germans. I don't hate the Ukrainians or the Lithuanians or the Latvians or the Slovaks. I only hate the people that did it. I don't hate their daughters and sons for what they did. I still go to Aldi's, buy some food. I go to Trader Joe. I have nothing against the people that they didn't do anything.
Did you ever meet like Elie Wiesel and like do other presentations with other Holocaust survivors?
Yes, I did. When I went to Washington, D.C. for the 20th anniversary, I met Elie Wiesel. And I met some other prominent people. But to me, they got educated, and but my life, I think, was pretty good.
If you could speak to any of the SS officers that were in the camp with you, what would you say to them?
If I could speak to the officers that were in the camp, I don't know what I would say to them, because when I talked to some of them after the war, they say they had to do whatever they did. I don't believe it. Maybe they did, because the German people are very militaristic. And Hitler wasn't elected by all the people. He was appointed by Hindenburg, by the president. And once he was appointed, he took all opposition and put him in jail, put him in concentration camps, and got rid of all the opposition, and he passed laws where he became the dictator. So, I don't know. It's hard to say.
When did you first learn English?
When I came to the United States, I landed in New York. I went to night school in New York, and I learned English.
You mentioned the German Air Forcemen who helped save your life. Were there any other Germans who you encountered along your way that helped you?
Yes, there was an article in the paper in the Milwaukee Journal that a Lithuanian came over here and on false pretenses, he lied on his application, and they were going to ship him back. And since my name was in the paper a couple of times, reporter called me up and asked me if they should ship the Lithuanian back. I said, well, if they ship him back now, you probably get a pension. If they would have shipped him back when the Russians were there, probably would have got punished. And she asked me if I ever met a German that was nice to me. I said, yes. In the last camp where we were, they drafted people in the 60s already. And one of the guards encouraged us. He says, he told us when Paris fell, he told us when the Americans crossed the German border, he said, hang on, it's not going to last much longer. So I said, if that gentleman was still alive today, I would have been happy, would have been honored to have him in my home. So there were some Germans that were against Hitler, but not enough.
Okay, well, that's loud. When you first arrived in America, what was your favorite thing about the U.S.?
My favorite thing was when I met people and they were so nice to me. You know, everybody was so friendly. My favorite thing was to go in a restaurant and order something to eat without any problems, without any. I mean, everything was so wonderful. I mean, everything was. It was something that I've never experienced before. You know, I experienced some of it in Germany during the Army PXs where I used to go in, but here it was wonderful. It was. I don't know. I have no problem. I think the American people are wonderful. I mean, I think it's if you treat the other person the way you want to be treated, you have no problems. I mean, I never encountered anti-Semitism in the service. I never encountered anti-Semitism when I operated my businesses, and I don't encounter it now. I mean, I have lots of friends, and we're all human beings, right? We gotta treat each other the way we should. So, and I'm not disappointed that I came to the United States. I'm glad I did. It was a very good choice. Any other questions?
If you could go back and do anything different, would you?
I don't know. I don't know how to go back where.
Like if it were all at the beginning again, what would you choose to do?
Start all over again.
Like at the beginning of the Holocaust?
Yeah.
Okay, starting at the beginning of the Holocaust, would there have been anything in that time period you would have done differently? Or made a different choice?
During the Holocaust, the choice wasn't up to you. The choice was up to people that took care of you. You know what I mean? I had no choice where I was going to go, what I was going to do. We didn't have a choice. Okay? Any other questions?
Why do you feel it's important today to talk about the Holocaust?
Pardon?
So why do you feel it's important today to come and make speeches to students? Why do you think it's important?
It's important because the human race got the disease when they started walking on 2 feet, and that's hatred. And I want to tell you what a horrible thing hatred is. That's what hatred is. That's why hatred caused the Holocaust. it's the most horrible disease because you don't know you have it on the symptoms unless it magnifies itself. So if I change one person's mind or made one person a little bit more forthcoming, a little bit more friendly, a little bit more loving, I've done my job. Because we're all born the same and we all die the same, right? We have no choice where we're born, right? And most of us have no choice when we die. The only choice we have in between those two things. So if you make a good choice, you got to be proud of it. If you make a bad choice, you can't blame somebody else because the choice was yours. So if you treat the other person the way you want to be treated, you won't have any problems. Any other questions? You know, some people ask me, why didn't you escape from the camp? You could escape from the ghetto. You could escape from the ghetto, but he couldn't escape from the concentration camp. The only way he could escape from the concentration camp is by dying. Either jump on the fence or talk back to a German. A lot of people did that. If you escaped from the ghetto, there were some woods about 100 kilometers from our ghetto. And I found out after the war that about 400 young people escaped from the ghetto. The woods were forming partisans to fight the Germans. But when you went out of the ghetto, you had to have somebody to guide you, to help you, to show you where to go. Because the first German or the first Lithuanian that recognized you as a Jew was the end of you. So you had to have some help on the outside. Any other questions?
How did you feel being separated from your family?
I felt horrible. And being a young kid, I didn't realize what a horrible thing it was for my mother and for my father. Becoming a father myself, and imagine the horrible thing that those people went through. Seeing your kid die, and you couldn't help him. Here, if we would turn anything upside down to help your kid, my God, what you wouldn't do. But having such a horrible feeling that you can't help your kid. You see your kid die in front of you. It's the most horrible feeling you can have as a parent or as a grandparent. And you couldn't help your kid.
Was Wisconsin your first choice for like where you came in the United States?
The reason I came to Wisconsin is because my friend came to Wisconsin. He came to New York. And they asked him, he didn't speak English. And they asked him, where do you want to go? So they asked him, what languages do you speak? He said, well, I speak Lithuanian, I speak a little Russian, I speak German very well. Oh, you speak German? Go to Milwaukee, everybody speaks German there. So he came to Milwaukee, and I followed him. Now I have a little peeve with him because He should have gone maybe to San Diego where it's nice and warm. would have been maybe nicer. Any other questions?
Did you ever get sick when you were in the Holocaust?
Did I ever get sick during the Holocaust? Yes, I did. I did get sick. And one thing the Germans were very afraid of, people getting sick and having an epidemic. But I got sick. What happened to me, I ate green apples. And I really got sick. But we had a that wasn't the camp where the Air Force was running. If the SS would have run that camp, I wouldn't have been alive. I was running by the Air Force, and there was a Jewish doctor at the camp, and he kept me alive. He didn't tell what I had. I think I had some kind of disease from the apple. I don't know what I had. But he didn't tell the Germans what I had. He said I was just feeling bad. And I got over it. So that's the only time I really got sick. In the other camps, if you got sick, there was no out.
Did you have any close friends in the camp?
You know what? Yes, I had this one friend. He was my close friend. We slept next to each other in the last camp. It was 25 people slept on board, and we helped each other. I mean, I see him about once a week or maybe twice a week, and our families are close together, our children are close together, and I don't consider him as a friend anymore. I consider him as my older brother. So I'm very happy to have somebody here because I didn't have any relatives here. My wife had relatives, but I didn't have anybody. So at least I have this friend here, and we're very happy to be together. Very happy with him. Yes. Yes. In 1985, my friend went on a vacation in Hawaii, and he met a German couple. He was a doctor in a prison camp, and told them where he was, and he said, well, if you ever come to Germany, come and visit us. So in 1988, my friend and I and our wives, we went to Germany to look at the camps. One camp was completely destroyed. There was nothing there. Dachau they had a barracks that they built up to show what it looked like, and the famous sign, Arbeit macht frei, was in a corner. You had to look for it. And we stayed by them. They lived in German city. And we stayed with them for about 3-4 days. They treated us wonderful. And we told them if they ever come to the States, come and visit us. So in 1992, they came to the States and stayed with us about 3-4 days. We still correspond with them. I have nothing against the German people. I have something against the people that perpetrated it. Any other questions?
Hello.
Hi.
Was there a time period after the Holocaust that you didn't want to talk about stuff that happened? And then was there any physical or mental problems that you had after the Holocaust?
After the Holocaust, nobody wanted to listen to you. Maybe because it was so fresh in the people's minds, you know. When I came to New York, I stayed by a woman, a Jewish woman, and I just roomed there, you know. And she asked me where I was. I told her the camps and that. She said, yeah. She said, we had it rough in the United States too. he couldn't even get bananas. So I just shut up. I didn't say anything anymore. So, but up till about, I didn't tell my wife anything. I didn't tell my children anything because I didn't put extra weight on them, you know. My wife, you know, after liberation, when I got better, I was examined by doctors and the doctor said, what you went through, and maybe you live to be maybe 40, 45, 50 at the most. So when I met my wife and asked her to marry me, I told her, I told her what the doctor said. I says, maybe 45, maybe 50. Now she calls me a liar because I'm a little bit older.
How do you stay so positive after all that's happened to you?
I want to live long because I want to see my great-grandchildren grow up, you know. So I'm a person that is very, very optimistic. I mean, if anything bad happens to me, I think it's just a thing that'll go by and everything will get better. I'm a very optimistic person. Maybe that's what kept me alive. I don't know. I feel very happy and I feel very good, and I like to meet new people, and I hope one of you can maybe be a little bit more liberal, a little bit more forthcoming, you know, to your friends. And that would make you very happy, I think. Any other questions? I'm going to stand over here. Is that all the time? Yes, about the time.
What's your greatest accomplishment after the war? After all the Holocaust now behind you, what's your greatest accomplishment?
My greatest accomplishment is raising a family. Okay. My greatest accomplishment is raising a family, having 4 children. Hitler wanted to destroy the Jewish people. And they tell me now that I talk to some people that say staying alive was a form of resistance too. You didn't have to go out there and fight them, but just to stay alive, just to survive the Holocaust was a form of resistance. And I am very happy that I stayed alive, that I survived the Holocaust. I raised a beautiful family, and now when I invite my kids, my grandchildren, probably maybe close to 30 people, you know, and most of them are alive just because of me, and that makes me very happy. It gives me a wonderful feeling that I accomplished something. And I want to thank you for listening to me. And I don't care what you look like or what you believe in. I don't care if you're black, white, the pink polka dots. Our hopes, our wishes, our desires are all the same, right? So if you treat the other person the way you want to be treated, this will be a wonderful world. You won't have any problems. Maybe one of you can become president of the United States or president of an influential organization. Please don't let it happen to anybody else. It's a horrible thing because people have no choice where they're born. It's still going on. People are still getting killed because they believe a little bit different than what other people do. Or they look a little different. So please, don't let it happen to anybody else. It's the most horrible thing that can happen to anybody. I thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.